Is it jaunt or is it like French pronunciation for it?
No,
it's jaunt. Okay,
got it. Perfect.
Okay, I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. I have Jaunt with me. He used to be a traveling entertainer, not so much anymore, right? He still travels a bit, but he does music. Jaunt, welcome to the Jesse Lewis Show. It's kind of stupid. We're going to start off with the question of the week. I ask all my guests that, if that's okay. And it's a weird question, but what old person things do you do?
Ooh, I walk in the woods and I wear a cardigan. I drink cacao. So it's a little bit like cocoa. You'd imagine an old person think it would be cocoa. I drink cacao, which is sort of raw chocolate, so it's almost like that. I like sitting in silence and feeling peaceful. I don't have a rocking chair, so that's I can't say I rock back and forth on the porch. And that's pretty good, isn't it? That's a few old things.
That's a few old things. Yeah. It tells me a lot about who you are, which is pretty awesome. The walking in the woods. Do you think that's an old person thing?
Maybe not. No.
Well,
I don't know. Why I said that actually was because I was with my friend James yesterday, and we were walking in the woods, and I was thinking to myself how, on a certain level, I do feel like an old man. Like after a certain amount of life and going through things, you sort of get to you sort of accept things exactly as they are, and you are sort of happy with things exactly as they are, and you're just sort of like, whatever else happens is a bonus. And there's also that yearning in one's life for peace, which we all have. And then eventually you get to that place, and you kind of have a visual in your head of when you're an old person. It's well, certainly my idea of old connotates, it's like, oh, they're done. They're not going to have to run around trying to do this. They don't have this place they're trying to get to, whatever. They're just good. They're just peacefully looking at stuff, going, oh yeah, right, yeah. And I'm feeling, and they're contained and stuff. So to me, there's a very positive connotation with old, and so that came. I was thinking about that in the woods. So no, there is no direct correlation between woods and oldness.
Well, I was just wondering because it seems like a very, maybe not old, but wise thing to do. A lot of people are disconnected from not only people, but the energy of the earth, which I know sounds all hippy dippy, but sometimes a walk in the woods is really what a person needs to reset who they are, get that grounding, and for lack of a better term, go hug a tree.
Yeah, I think right now, we're right in that right now, aren't we? We're right in the time when people all around the world, people who are watching this, everybody has been realizing in their own way and thinking about and contemplating things that they have not really, everyone to some degree has been contemplating things that they haven't contemplated as much before. Some people will already have been deep in some sort of awakened state. Others will be, for the first time, stopping a huge routine of stuff that's kept them from maybe feeling certain things, observing certain things, understanding why society is a certain way. And a lot of that is to do with nature and being in harmony with nature. A lot of that is seeing how society has gone completely out of whack, has completely stopped walking in the woods.
Absolutely.
So I think it is kind of, it is kind of relevant and not. I think these days, what is really interesting, I don't know whether you found this yourself with the other conversations you've had with people and what your community feels, but it's almost coming into a time where the old cliches about, oh, this is a bit too hippie-ish, or this is a bit too tree huggy, is that people don't really feel that anymore. They're just like, no, that's how we want to be. Or that's, I don't know. I feel like there's a shift.
I think there's a shift in my mind. I'm 35 years old, and for the last 35 years, and we'll talk about your industry specifically, there has been a very specific plastic pop, plastic rock. It's basically been all the same thing. Shake your booty, be unfaithful to each other, hurt each other. Maybe not all of it, but the very popular stuff was very hurty for a lot of people. And I'm seeing the shift in the music industry specifically towards more connected music, like it was in the 60s and 70s. where it's connecting people versus ripping them apart. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. It completely makes sense. I'd love to know, because I think I've got much less. I don't have my sights set much on the industry in a sort of macro way, particularly.
Yeah.
I just get on with my own little thing, and I think I probably used to when I was younger be a bit more wanting to have some grasp on, what's everybody into, and can I have this sort of. I had a certain attachment to a certain idea of success. I'm kind of like, I'm so far gone, like let go of that I don't really know. But yes, I mean, it rings true for me. I'd be fascinated. Can you tell me more about in what ways you feel there's music coming up that is more connected?
So I was talking to do you know who Biff Naked is? I was
No.
talking to her. Okay, she's a famous Canadian musician, and she back when I was growing up, she had some pretty good songs that were pretty high up there on the charts. And I feel the songs that she's making now are way more deeper, and it may only be because of her personal pain that she's had. I also talked to Crystal Shawanda, who is a young lady from middle of Ontario, and she's moved from country, which is the most popular music on the planet, over to blues, because to her, blues spoke to her more. And I think a lot of people in the past never made that switch over. And from reading your story, I know that you made the switch from maybe a little bit more poppy stuff to having a lot more feeling in your music. For instance, I listened to your We Are the Dance.
You Are the Dance, yeah.
You Are the Dance, yes. I listened to that, and I can connect with it. It's a very happy song. It's super, like, happy. But there's tones under there of regret. There's tones under there of the things you have to do to get through life, and maybe even depression. And I know that you probably maybe you didn't mean to put them in the song, but it allowed me to make a connection with you as a person listening to that song. And I don't think the Britney Spears type songs really do that.
Yeah, sure. I completely agree. Yeah. I think there's different music. There's music is the full spectrum of humanity is within music, isn't it? Yeah. So we have there is every role and every use it might have as a tool. So a lot of music would go under, to some extent, distraction, and other music can be medicine. And there's obviously so many other genres and subgenres and ways things cross over and whatever. That would just be a sort of musicologist's job to think about in those terms. But essentially, there's lots of different roles, and the music I've just been writing poetry since I was 14. That was where I started, and really, that's just all I've always felt the same. In the same way that we are ourselves. The person that is Jesse Lewis that has been going around life. You felt the same when you were 3 and when you are now. Now you're no doubt more emotionally mature. You're no doubt you've got lots of different experiences. No doubt there have been things that are traumatic, not traumatic, whatever. But the person that you know to be Jesse Lewis is the same. That's consciousness.
Yep.
Likewise, I feel very much the same about the stuff I say in my poetry that I used to write when I was a teenager that ended up becoming songs when I left university. Because it took me a long time to get into music. I was always told I couldn't sing. I was always told it wasn't musical. It was like it was very much a sort of me feeling like into this, like I really feel I want to express myself in this way. I love performing. I want to connect these poems in a way. And I was surrounded when I was about 22, 23 with like other poets who are all very depressed, and they were about 60 or 70, and they published their tiny little, which are beautiful, tiny little books to, editions of 100, but nobody seemed very happy, and it certainly didn't suit me to be in that world. And I was like, what would I like? Well, I'd quite like to sing my poems. And I was like, duh. I mean, that's what. So I was like, like a rock star, like music, like rock and roll, like Bob Dylan, like all the people you listen to. Oh, I get it. Yeah, sure. Why don't I do that? And then I thought, oh, it's too late. You're too old. That classic thing you think when you're 23. Oh. And I never, everybody always does it. You can talk to like 23s, they're like, oh, it's too late. I'm too old now to do this thing. So obviously, I got through that. Still hadn't achieved anything in my music by the time I was 30. And then gradually learned what I was doing. And it just came out of a desire to be a poet and to express this sort of exaltation and excitement and joy of life with everything. Like in the You Are the Dance, You Are the Dance is all about every single aspect of humanity, every single aspect of our existence, every single aspect of what we're capable of being in the world and feeling it. That it's just the beauty, the extraordinary experience of being alive. And I was just trying to sort of clash a few different images and thoughts and perspectives next to each other, to try to give that sort of multifaceted feel that we all know is, that we can sort of relate to. It's like, oh yeah, that's sort of paradox and conflagration of stuff. That's what I know to be life. That's the dance that we're all in. So
that's fantastic. It's a great metaphor, because it really is a dance to move from space to space throughout your life. Before the show, we talked about the house concerts that you do and the yoga concerts that you do, and the purpose of those. Can you talk about what those are, and if you're still doing them? And
yeah, sure. Well, for a long time, what happened was I was in some, as I finally started doing music, I got in various dodgy bands. I was in a band called Funny Bone, which I thought was a great name at the time. Terrible name. We were like this fusion of acid jazz and folk, which because the rhythm section were into acid jazz and I was a folk singer, and because that's what we had, we were like, that's unique. It's going to be huge. Anyway, so that crashed and burned, and I suddenly was like, I'd quite like to do a sort of once a month gig somewhere, like a residency, and get friends along and do it. So I started up this night. Over the years, it became something that I put on in people's homes. I basically wanted to find a venue for it, and I thought, I'll just do it in my room. I was living in LA. I had a manager in LA. I was doing music there, and I started bringing people every Friday night. People would come around to my place, and I would get 2 or 3 different people to do 2 or 3 songs each in the middle of this party we were having. And when we did the songs, I got everybody was silent. We all just piped down and just got really into the music for about 40 minutes, an hour, and shared this gift of whoever these people that had come, and sort of spontaneously, the build sort of, was fairly spontaneous. And then after that, we'd have a bit of a party. I did that for about 6 Fridays in a row, and people just absolutely loved it, because it was connection. It was almost like church. Not that I've really ever went to church much as a kid. I was very loosely brought up in the sort of Christian thing, but not really, that wasn't much part of my system. But this was just like, it was like, it was both getting together, it was meeting people you hadn't met before, but also sharing this magic, this silence and this performance. So then I ended up doing that in other people's houses around the world for several years. It was called Unlit. If you can still see videos online, maybe we'll put some links up to it. It was something that, and then I moved out of doing that into another phase, which was these gentle warrior ceremonies and yoga centers. But that's another thing. But it's always just been about, it's been about connection, and also a lot to do with performance, actually, a lot to do with the magical nature of how the audience and the performer in the right context can disappear completely, and the song comes through, and you all co-create this, essentially what becomes a sort of either sacred or in some cases a healing experience, depends on how you're viewing it or feeling it, because everyone has kind of become one with this particular song. And so the person who's playing, and in this case of the gentle warrior ceremonies in yoga centers, it's normally me playing the guitar, singing my songs. It's not to do with me being the guy up there and everybody's watching me like it's a performance. It's more like we're all there, and we go into, it's almost like a meditation. And then there are certain bits we all sing along together. And then the song is certain songs will come up at the right time, and it just becomes much more of a co-created experience. So that's kind of what I've been into and interested in, is like genuine connection, I guess. A lot of gigs, there is no genuine connection. You go to a gig, there's people drinking at the bar, there's people talking there, there's a guy struggling away on stage who's trying to use all his 20 years of stagecraft to try to subdue everybody, thinking that he's done a good gig if he can stop half the audience from talking. And then maybe for about 10 seconds of one song, which might be a cover, everybody shuts up and thinks it's good. And they go, oh, that guy was really good. And it's just total joke. I mean, it's just like, It's like, come on, why can't we actually really get into something and be totally in it as much as we possibly can? That's the experiences I've been trying to create, I guess.
I get it. I think one of the aspects that for concerts specifically, I'm an entertainer too, like, and I get it, because you'll have those people going to the bar. You'll have that. It breaks up. It hurts the performance. It really does, because it's a loss of that person, and it's a loss of that audience member. That, for me, it's laughter. It's the enjoyment people get. It's the emotion that I put out there. When you're looking at something like that, do you think that it's because of the media that we have now, and people aren't used to going to live events as much as they once did?
No, don't think that comes up. I think it's a general drift away from. Well, I mean, I think these places exist. I think it's the case. It's just what's it? Not quite sure really. It's a certain sort of laziness. I mean, like, there's a lot of. It's a certain. You have to have a certain desire to really connect that much. I think people maybe don't. I think maybe what it is that people don't want what that sort of level of connection might show up. You know, people are wanting distraction, I guess what it is. On a large scale, a lot of people are wanting distraction from what's actually going on. And if the sort of thing we're talking about is like, yes, but yes, I do agree. I mean, I'm not this. Yes, sure, lots of things. Our attention spans are smaller. Yes, there are lots of factors that pay into it. And I think really we're coming into a time when more and more people are embracing sacred music, devotional mantra, things, ways in which they can actually find real meaning in their lives and real connection through music. So it's certainly not. I'm not writing off, like, or I mean, obviously, like, live. There's a massive amount of stuff out there, but it's just the stuff that I'm drawn to is the stuff that is in the bracket where people are really trying to create a truly connective experience. People might use the word spiritual. It's not necessarily really necessary. It's just a connective, emotional, real experience. That's all we're talking about. That's all that spiritual means. You know?
That's fantastic. So you were a world traveler for years and years, and you know where I'm going with this already.
Oh.
You moved to Halifax. Can you tell the story of why you moved to Halifax?
Well, in part I can. Yeah, my daughter lives in Halifax, so I came here when she was 8 years old, and have been here, and she's now 16, and you know, it's been a massive, like, you know, just an amazing thing in my life, and a huge to be a father, and yeah, was a sort of shift in my life in terms of where I was living, but it's just been. I always had the intuition that was like, okay, yeah, that's just gonna, you know, just go to Halifax, and it's all gonna be great. And it's been a very deep experience to be in this place where previously I didn't really know anyone here, and to know I was going to be here for a certain amount of time, and be that's been a very grounding thing. I think for a long time I felt I had a lot of choices, like, oh, you could live here or you could do this here. You know, I was naturally drawn to traveling and playing my songs in different places, and naturally drawn to not being being in my hometown of London. And so it's, yeah, I think it was actually just a very useful. It taught me things that I would never have learned otherwise.
That's fantastic. Michelle Coleman was kind enough. If you know Michelle, she has posted the Gentle Warrior song ceremonies on below the video.
Michelle Coleman from your hometown.
From my hometown, Saskatoon, right?
Yeah, Saskatoon. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're not in Saskatoon, are you? Okay.
I'm 2 hours out, but close enough.
2 hours out. Okay. Yeah. So she recently moved out there. Michelle and I, like, she's complete partners in crime. She's like helps me with all my stuff, and she's amazing. So yes, what she sent you? What did she send you?
She has actually posted. I see all the comments on the video over on the side over here. So she's posted the Fly On FYI on Unlit series, the YouTube videos, and she's posted the Gentle Warrior Song Ceremonies. Which, Michelle, thank you for that. And anybody who is watching, we've got a lot of viewers right now for this show. Actually, we have 9 people watching. Anybody that has questions for Jaunt, if you put them in the thing in the next 3 minutes, I'll probably ask your specific question.
There you go. Let's make it real.
Live and interactive, right? So when you're making your music, it's different than most of the things out there. It is folk music, but it also has hints of, well, it's got your choir in the background. It's got a bunch of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, so it's less folk. It's less folk these days. I mean, it's much more. I see it more as a sort of, yeah, it's a well, I call it medicine pop, but it's because I think of music as medicine, experience as medicine. There's so many indigenous plant medicines. There's so many, there's so many medicines out there. That will work, even it's just, literally the path we're on and how we relate to it is our medicine, isn't it? And so this new album, the music from it and the people playing it is just it's an absolute flowering of all the medicine I have had in my life, the friendships I have, and the different people on it. So I've asked my friend Julian to make these electronic backing tracks. He lives in Mexico City, and then I asked my friend George to play bass. He lives in London. I asked my friend Bob in Massachusetts, who I met in a field the day after getting out of a 10-day Vipassana meditation ceremony. Just after meditating for 100 hours, I met him in this field in Massachusetts with these people dressed as mermaids and people around me. And anyway, it was a long story. But anyway,
that's fantastic.
He ended up playing keyboards and percussion on 2 of my albums. And these guys all flew their parts in remotely. But the basis of it was these electronic backing tracks. And then this amazing choir conductor, arranger, and string arranger called Tamsin Adrienne from Halifax. Tamsin wrote the string quartet and choir arrangements. And then my friend Ollie, who's played with all the biggest bands in the world doing strings for them. I did 3 of the string arrangements as well in London. So all these different people, these friends from over the years, people I'd been waiting to hang out with. I mean, I never see Julian. He's in Mexico. I was great friends with him about 15 years ago. And now we had a chance to do this thing together. There's all the richness of like really old friends making this music together, and also doing this kind of throwing ourselves in the dark. Like, how's this going to work out? And just totally trusting that. Just go and kind of knowing, like, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll track something else, right? I mean, like, so there's almost that with recording, you do always have that safety net, so you can kind of let things flow. But as it turns out, when it does flow and you are kind of in a really good zone with it, we just let things fall into place. That the arrangements fell into place, and when it's all sat there ready to mix, and while that process was going on, my dad had just died. And this was like the big overarching theme of this album for me, is that just after my dad died, I started tracking this album, and I had this absolute experience of him being there in the studio with me after he had passed, kind of on my shoulder as I'm putting down the guide vocals and guitars and stuff for this thing, to the click track. Everything's going down so simply and so smoothly, and the first tracks we get back from Julian are so simple and smooth, and everything's lining up. And he's there going, yeah, man, sounds great. And I'm like, what? And basically the history with my dad is that he had always been telling me to get a job. He'd always been saying, like, I mean, I think he was proud of me in lots of ways and stuff, but really he found it quite tough that his son was doing something so untraditional. He was very traditional. So he found it quite tough that I was doing music and not really making any money or becoming very famous with it. So to have him there really supporting me, and just really recognizing it. And he was the one who kind of birthed this sound, because he kept on saying in my head, like, yeah, add more stuff. And I was like, really? Like, I mean, how can I get, so with this sound, which hopefully your listeners can go and experience. If there are 9 people here, I really invite you to go and get the free, I'm offering until June 26th, I'm offering as a gift, in gratitude for receiving this album, gratitude for having the last 2 years filled with joy making this album. I'm offering this album as a free download, and the artwork, which is this stunning imaginary flower full PDF, which you can print out as a poster and put on your wall. Artwork and the album as a download for free from my website. So it's yours. It's until June 26th. You can share that link with any of your friends. This is coming from a place of no attachment to who takes me up on that, whatever. I just want whoever resonates with what I've been talking about, with what they feel. This album is amazing. It's a magic. Like, it's not. If I felt it was like by me, it would sound like boasting. It's not by me. There's about over 30 people have worked on this album for 2 years. It has a force completely of its own. It's got huge energy in parts, massive intimacy in other parts. It's unlike anything I've ever. I don't know. So all I can do is just like, I just want people to have it. I just want people to have this album. And I'm not a famous musician. There's no particular reason in this plethora of music that's out there at the moment in the world. I'm not going to get on the radio much. I'm not going to be particularly famous. Nobody's necessarily going to hear it. We know what the music business is like at the moment. We know our world is going through huge, huge shifts and change that we don't understand. So I'm just saying, if you would like this little bit of musical medicine, please go and accept this gift. It really is a joy.
And it is medicine. I listened to 3 of the songs that Eric sent me.
Yeah.
And my goodness, they pumped me up first off, but they also brought me little deeper connections with what my feelings were at the time. We have a couple things that we need to talk about. I've got a comment about a fish named Fred from Sam Jones.
A fish named Sam Jones.
No, a fish called Fred. In
I know.
Australia, in the Torres Strait, something like that. Yeah.
Dr. Sam. So Dr. Sam, so I'm going to extend that, Dr. Sam. Dr. Sam is one of my best friends in my life, and I was at university with him. And as well as at the very beginning in 2010, that's so funny. At 2010, it was kind of a big turning point in my life, 2010, 2011. Up to then, I'd kind of been this, similar to me now, but probably mired in a sort of little slightly thick layer of greeny slime of sort of like attachment and egoism and this sort of desire to be a rock star, and people saying, yes, John, you're so great, this is going to be this, and nothing ever working out, me sort of not really understanding why things weren't flowing. I finally broke the mold, and I basically just set off out into the world with my guitar saying, I'm going to be a troubadour. I'm just going to let my songs organically lead me around the world. I'm not going to follow the conditioning. My parents have been trying to throw me down a different plan where I'm going to go. I'm going to just go out into the world with no plan whatsoever in my guitar. And the first place I went was to stay with Sam, who is a doctor, and him and his wife, Leanne, are still living, I think, or they're just about to move, on Bardu Island, which is this tiny little island in the Torres Strait between Papua New Guinea and the northeastern coast of Australia. I went and stayed with Sam, and we went fishing one day. We went fishing a couple of times, and Sam caught a couple of little tiddlers. And, I was like, oh, well done, Sam. There must be bigger ones out here, aren't there? And then one day I think he was a bit hungover or something like that, or he went off to do something, and I went fishing. I was pretty hungover as well, I seem to remember. That was back in the days when I used to drink. And I went out fishing with his friend, and I caught a 6-foot Spanish mackerel.
Holy cow.
It was. We were just sort of out in the bay, not very far away. I just put the hook out and I caught this thing. It felt like a log or something. I was like, what on earth is this thing? I caught a 6-foot Spanish mackerel, and I brought it in anyway. And we called it Fred. And that was, so Sam kind of like almost fainted when he saw that. And it was kind of a legendary moment. That was the start of my, trip in Australia as a troubadour. We took it as a sign that things were going to be okay. And I went through a few rough patches and then started meditating, and things were okay. So that is the story of Fred.
That's awesome. We do have one more. How much time do I actually have with you? Because we're at our 30 minutes. Do you want to end this now, or are you going to give me another 5?
Let's keep going. I'm loving it.
Okay. Chuck, I'm sorry I'm going to butcher your last name, Chuck, but Chuck Pinot, he asks, what other artistic mediums really inspire your music?
other artistic mediums really inspire my music? That's a good question. Well, I'm often.
That's deep, right?
Yeah. I guess to some extent, it is a good. I mean, I'd say mostly on a certain level. There are not many. I'm not very drawn to. The only one I can think of that directly inspires my music would probably be film, because I feel like a lot of my songs are quite visual, and so I think that's obviously there must be an indirect relation to how one has experienced film and the way narratives follow in. Yes, so some of my songs are quite filmic, and you can sort of visualize them in those sort of terms. So maybe film, but really, probably I would say there aren't that many. Like I'm not massively. Visual art is not. I love visual art, but it's not something that resonates with me as much as most. What really inspires my songs is emotion and experience of life, like direct experience of life. It is not art that that inspires my songs. So that would be the most direct answer would be that it's not art, it's just the experience of life itself, experience of consciousness, experience, emotion, things that go on, and then that comes out as an emotional reaction in the song.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, the 3 songs that I listened to were very happy. Do you ever write songs that are deeper, not necessarily angrier, but have the sadness of life in them as well?
Well, yes. I mean, so the album has the full range on there. So I was saying to a friend the other day, it's not often that most songs have a transformational part to them. So there's a song, track 10 on the new album, is called The End Is an Illusion, and it starts off very intense, asking pretty direct questions, saying, what's there to sing about when we've all been told that we're going to die soon, and if we keep doing what we do, that's it for us forever, when we all know what's going to go down, and that the fear and lies will continue to resound, and that everybody will do everything they can to do nothing till we're all burning. And so it asks that question, but then the answer connects with the truth of what I know experience to be, which is, the end is an illusion. We'll keep going long after we're gone, and then it goes into it kind of transforms and turns the thing around, and it becomes quite a reassuring song. So most of the time, I don't dwell in. There's a couple of songs of mine. There's a song called "Failed Again," which kind of stays. It doesn't drift out. It just stays remorselessly in a dark place. But no, if you go through the album, there's definitely light and shade that goes into places that are much more melancholy, much more connected to the heart, much stiller, much more looking at the shadow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to get too dark there. It's just
what I
listened to. There was hints of that, but it wasn't really, really deep, if that makes sense.
I think it's absolutely important. And also the thing is, there is definitely a relationship some people have with my music where there's an energy to it which is uplifting. If you actually look at the lyrics and you spend time with it, the most that you'll find that all of them are kind of based in going from pain. So they're all going for none of them are just this sort of like, hey, yeah, everything is good. None of them are sort of a spiritual bypassing sort of happiness.
Yeah.
They're coming from, even thank you for my happiness. It's like it's talking about being mired in depression. It's going, I don't know where it comes from, but it takes me over, leaves me feeling broken and totally hopeless. That's the opening of the song. As it is, it's a very, very upbeat song, because it's about discovering a sort of solidarity with someone else who's coming in and saying, we'll get through this together. But the initial start of it is being in a place of it. So yeah.
That's awesome. I want to thank you for your openness. A lot of people come on and they're closed up, but you were open right from the start, which was fantastic. I honor you for being here. I really do truly thank you for coming on the show, because you don't have to. People don't have to. And before we end the broadcast, though, I do have one last question, which you're a meditation guy, so it might not actually be a good question for you, but what's one thing you've done today, other than this show, to make yourself happy?
I bought a croissant.
a croissant,
Yeah.
like a French, like a French pastry type thing.
Yeah. There's a very good bakery in Halifax called LF Bakery, and I brought a croissant. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that unless it's in a French accent. A croissant.
I know, I know. I want to do the same thing, but
It seems wrong to call it a croissant.
Well,
anyway, that made me happy, and yeah, probably did quite a lot of things that made me happy. I got up in the morning, I drank some lemon water and read a book for a bit. That was nice.
that's an old person thing, by the way.
Yeah,
To
there you
take
go.
it all the way back.
Young guy, it's John.
John, I want to thank you for being here. Everybody who's watching, hit the share button so other people can experience John and understand what he's all about, because that's important for me and him. John, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to ask you to wave bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
and I'll hit end broadcast.
All right.
End broadcast.